Tonight, Russian President Putin is angry and promising to kick the enemy out as Ukraine is pushing further into Russian territory. Moscow has been scrambling as Ukrainian military officials say that their troops have taken control of dozens of Russian villages and large swaths of land. More than 120,000 Russians have evacuated what is known as the Kursk border region. A video that was geolocated by CNN over the weekend that you're looking at now shows Ukrainian soldiers taking down Russian flags and instead raising Ukrainian ones. Putin is directing a lot of his anger at the West tonight. Joining me here to discuss, former Trump National Security Advisor and also the former UN Ambassador John Bolton. And Ambassador, you're hearing Putin tonight. We're watching his response, incredibly angry in real time to this, laying the blame on the West, saying that the West is fighting us with the hands of the Ukrainians. He says, quote, the enemy will get the response that it deserves. Obviously, he's been arguing this is a proxy battle for since the invasion began. I wonder what you make of what we're seeing Ukrainian troops do and Putin's response tonight.
Well, I think the Ukrainians have won a real propaganda victory. I think this was obviously unexpected. They saw a defect in Russian defenses inside Russia, probably because the positions were not heavily manned. The Russians didn't expect a cross-border attack. They thought that the pressure the United States and other NATO members had put on Ukraine not to attack in Russia was going to continue. So they were taken by surprise. It's a blow to Putin's personal prestige, the Kursk area, obviously where this massive tank battle was fought in World War II, a victory for the Soviet Union against Germany. So it's the exact opposite. But I also think here there's potential danger for Ukraine if they try and hold the territory they've taken against what I think we can expect will be the best Russian counteroffensive they can muster, and are driven back. You could turn a victory into a defeat. We don't know exactly where the troops came from that were used in this Ukrainian offensive. Maybe they were taken off the line in the Donbass. Maybe that exposes Ukraine there. So there's a lot we don't know, but there's no mistaking this is a big hit for Putin and his advisors.
Well, I mean, because it seems really embarrassing. And you're right, we don't know if Ukraine can hold this or what the next steps look like. But the fact that they were able to go into Russia and to take this region that people can see right here on this map, I mean, what do you make of how Putin was apparently caught off guard by this?
Well, this is not the first time in this war. After the early Russian advances in 2022, in the first 6 months or so, the Ukrainians detected weakness in Russian positions around the major northeastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv and positions around that near the Russian border. And again, taking the Russians by surprise, they swept them away, pushed them out of Ukraine back into Russia, and have basically kept them out since then, where the Russians responded by concentrating on southern Ukraine and making advances there. So again, I think the Ukrainians, whether it's intelligence or Russian defectors or whatever it may be, have caught the Russians unaware, and that has to sting too. It's just interesting to watch how many hits the Russian military has taken here, how many failures they've had, how unable they seem to be to live up to their reputation. So all of this is bad for Putin and the Russians, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and just seeing how Russian state TV is talking about it and the surprise and basically inability to frame it in a way that's positive for them is remarkable. But Ambassador, as you and I are talking right now, and as we covered at the top of the show, Trump is having this conversation with Elon Musk that had some big technical delays, but now is underway. It kind of sounds a lot like what you hear from Trump at a campaign rally, not a ton surprising there, but he did say something to Elon Musk. I want to read you the quote. It's Trump recounting a conversation he says he had with Vladimir Putin and appears to be in regard to invading Ukraine, going into Ukraine, something we knew Putin wanted to do. Trump said, quote, I said to Putin, don't do it, Vladimir. And I told him things that what I would do. And he said, no way. And I said, way. And Trump says, it's the last time we had the conversation. He would have never done. I get along very well with him, and I hope to get along well with him again. It's a good thing, not a bad thing. What do you make of one, just that story, but also Trump's argue of how much influence he has on the Russian leader?
Well, I think Trump's making that up. He certainly didn't have that conversation with Putin when I was in the White House. I don't believe he had it before then. I can't really speak to what came after. But this is another case of Trump making things up that it's hard to prove or disprove. He can say he had some private conversation at a dinner at a G20 meeting or something like that. I don't think it happened. And I don't think that there was really an occasion for Trump to have that conversation, but it fits the persona that Trump thinks he has. I personally, having watched Trump and Putin together on several occasions, having listened into their phone conversations, having myself met Putin on any number of occasions going back to October of 2001, I think that that Putin essentially thinks that Trump is an easy mark. He doesn't respect him, but he understands that using flattery with Trump can get him a long way. I think if Trump did put together the meeting he says he wants to have between Zelensky and Putin in a room together to solve the Ukraine crisis, I think Putin would take Trump to the cleaners to Ukraine's detriment.
Well, I mean, it's an incredibly serious conversation, and obviously the Ukrainians are deeply involved, but just to hear him describing it as, I mean, it sounds like two high school girls. I told him things that what I would do, and he said, no way. And I said, way. I mean, is that how world leaders talk from your experience?
No, it's not even how Donald Trump talks. It's how he wished he talked and how he wished he could show that that he's the big alpha guy. But this is imagination on Trump's part. And it shows he really doesn't understand what's at stake here. He knows very little history. He certainly knows next to nothing about the history of Ukraine and Russia, which is deeply complicated even for experts. So to me, the way he recounts these conversations is one more demonstration that he's just not fit to be president.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be with you.